snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So June is over, it is unbelievable, we are already halfway through this year, that is crazy, and it's now July, so I wanted to do my June wrap up, and I will also be filming my July TBR straight after this, so you will see that very soon. So in the month of June I actually had a really good reading month, even though I was away on holiday for a week and didn't do too much reading whilst I was there, and I ended up reading 11 books, which is so good. I'm so happy, so let's get into what I read. So the first book that I ended up reading in the month of June was The Cadet of Tilde, which is by Alex Liddell. This is a young adult or children's fantasy story. It has some really good moments, but it wasn't as developed as I hoped, so I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 star rating. Next, I read We Were Liars, which is by E. Lockhart. This was the Booksplosion book of the month, and I did enjoy parts of it. I thought the writing was very beautiful, very lyrical, and just very, very lovely, but I felt like the storyline was a little bit predictable, so personally it didn't captivate my attention as much as I hoped, and it's a very short book, so that's probably understandable. But for me, I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 star rating as well. Next, I ended up reading Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. This book I really enjoyed. I thought it was very fun. It's quite a fast-paced fantasy. It's very much based on revenge, and it's a bitter tale with some very gory and horrible things that happen, but it's very, very well told, and I really enjoyed the characters within it. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I finished up the Selection Trilogy, which is by Kiera Cass, by reading The One, and I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was very, very fun, just as entertaining as the others. I did prefer the second book, which is called The Elite, but I did love this one still, and the covers are gorgeous, the storyline is very, very funny, very entertaining, and it was just a fun YA read, so this one I ended up giving 4 out of 5 stars as well. Next, I ended up reading The Programme, which is by Suzanne Young. This is a story all about a world where suicide has taken over and become an epidemic, and it's a YA read, very, very fun, very cool, and I just love the idea of the suicide taking over and the way that this treatment was developed to sort of help out with this, but actually it's kind of causing more problems for the teenagers than the solution. So it's a really fun read, definitely one that I enjoyed a lot, and I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars as well. Next, I picked up Curse's Fury, which is by Jim Butcher. This book I really enjoyed. I thought it was very, very fun. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the second one, but I did still really love it, and that was mainly because the Marat weren't really included in this storyline, and they're my favourite characters, but I am hoping that they will come back into the story in the next few books, and this one definitely has its own points that are really, really interesting, so highly worth reading. If you enjoyed the series, I'm sure that you're going to enjoy this one as well, and I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The History Keeper's A Night Ship to China by Damien Dibben. This is a children's book all about time travel and historical fiction, and it's just so much fun. It's about these kids who can travel through time, and they have to make sure that no one is meddling around in time and ruining anything, and it's just such a fun world, and the characters and the places that they go to are so well thought out and explained, and I really, really am enjoying this a lot. So I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 star rating. Really fun. Next, I picked up Stormdancer by Jay Kristoff. This is a story set in Japan, and it's very Japanese steampunk, which is really, really cool. It's a very, very entertaining read. Definitely I would consider it more YA than adult, and it's just very entertaining. It's got some very, very fun characters and some very cool bonds between characters and animals, which means that there are some sections which are very interesting to read about, and I highly enjoyed this series and I want to carry on with it for sure. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. Following Stormdancer, I then picked up Praying for Rain, which is the novella set before Stormdancer. I didn't know it existed before Stormdancer, but it does, and it's also by Jay Kristoff, and I really enjoyed it. It's a 20-page novella, very, very short, but it just kind of gives you a little bit more insight into the world and the way of things and the mindset of the people who live in this world, and it's just a really, really fun read, so definitely I would recommend that. and I ended up giving that one a 4 out of 5 star rating as well. Next I read Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. This is my first ever Terry Goodkind book, and I was really hoping to enjoy it. I thought that it would be really fun because loads of you guys love it, and I thought that I was going to as well. Unfortunately, it just wasn't as unique as a lot of other fantasy books that I have read, and therefore it didn't captivate my attention enough. It was a decent fantasy, but it just didn't have enough going for it on its own accord. It was all sort of mimics of other storylines that I've already read, so I don't know if they copied from this book or vice versa, but it felt to me like this just wasn't as developed and unique as it could have been. So I only gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars, but I did enjoy it still. I won't be carrying on with the story, but if you are a beginner in fantasy, this is probably a good one for you guys to pick up. And the final book that I ended up reading in June was The Wise Man's Fear, which is by Patrick Rothfuss. This is why I didn't read any more books, because it is huge and the writing is tiny, and I ended up reading the majority of this story whilst I was on holiday, so that was good. And then I finished it up the last few days of June when I got back, and I really love this story. I cannot get across to you guys how much I am in love with this story. I think that Patrick Rothfuss is definitely on the same level as Brandon Sanderson for me. I love them both. I think they are both wonderful authors, and this story is just so beautifully written, so meticulously told, and I cannot rave more highly about this to you guys. I think you should pick up The Name of the Wind and then read this straight after, because it is so good, and I need book number 3 because it's amazing, and I just want to carry on with the series and find out what happens. So excited for book number 3, and so I ended up giving this one a 5 out of 5 star rating, unsurprisingly, and I loved it. Highly recommend this one to you guys. So this is most of the books that I read in June. The others were obviously ebooks, so I don't have the physical copy of them, but I really enjoyed nearly all of the books that I read this month, and I would love to know what you guys thought of them if you have read any of them, so please leave me some comments down below saying what you thought, and I will definitely be interested to read them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little